but based on the evidence that we do indeed have a 2,000-year-old burial shroud.
For centuries, it was dismissed, doubted, even discredited. An ancient linen locked away in the dark silence of a cathedral vault, bearing a mysterious image scorched into its fibers, without paint, without ink, without explanation. Many called it a forgery, others a miracle. But now, new evidence in 2025 may change everything. This is the Shroud of Turin, a sacred cloth that many believe once wrapped the body of Jesus Christ. Its image has stirred the hearts of saints, confounded scientists, and ignited fierce debate among skeptics. It resides in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Turin, Italy. For over 600 years, it has been revered by the faithful and scrutinized by the curious. A paradox of faith and science, devotion and doubt. Despite every attempt to discredit it, the shroud remains the most studied religious relic in the world. And now, in this moment of technological progress and spiritual awakening, we ask the question that has echoed through time. Could this linen, this silent witness of suffering, be the final physical proof of the resurrection? The shroud has not been publicly displayed since 2015. A decade has passed. A decade of silence. No processions, no pilgrimages, no glimpse of the fragile cloth that once captivated the world. But silence doesn't mean stillness. Behind the curtains of the Vatican, beyond the guarded chambers of Turin, science has not been idle. Quiet hands, steady minds, and passionate hearts have returned, again and again, to the shroud. In 2025, something changed. A wave of collaboration, unlike anything before, brought together physicists, historians, and theologians from across the globe. From the labs of Italy to the archives of Jerusalem, curiosity has been reignited. The Vatican itself remains silent. But private researchers are no longer content to whisper. The world deserves to see it again, one scientist declared, not just with eyes of faith, but with the eyes of truth. And so, the shroud steps into the light once more, not in a glass case, but through the lens of discovery. In 1988, 3 laboratories conducted radiocarbon testing on a small sample of the shroud. The result? A date between 1260 and 1390 AD. It was hailed by many as the final nail in the coffin, evidence, they said, of a medieval forgery. But there was a problem, a quiet, persistent problem. The test had used threads from a corner of the cloth, one that may have been repaired in the Middle Ages. This wasn't just any sample. It may not have been original. For years, this claim was ignored, dismissed. But in 2025, textile experts returned to the scene with sharper tools and a sharper question. What exactly was tested? The answer is startling. Under the microscope, the fibers from the 1988 sample differ significantly from those in the body of the cloth. Different weaving, different coloration, different age. Filmmaker David Rolfe, longtime advocate for the shroud's authenticity, called the 1988 conclusion one of the greatest scientific mistakes of the century. The implications? The carbon dating, once thought definitive, may be entirely irrelevant. Enter the scientists of today. At the Institute of Crystallography in Bari, Italy, a team led by Liberato De Caro embarked on a new path, using X-ray diffraction to analyze the aging of linen fibers at the molecular level. It was a technique never before applied to the shroud, and it changed everything. De Caro's 2025 study, published in a peer-reviewed journal, concluded that the degradation patterns of the shroud's fibers align with linen that is roughly 2,000 years old. Not medieval, ancient. The findings shocked the scientific community. not because they were impossible, but because they were precise. Carbon dating had been the standard, but De Caro's work showed that contamination, handling, and centuries of display made that method unreliable. A new door had opened. The radiocarbon test is no longer valid for this cloth, De Caro stated. We now have tools that can see deeper. But the story isn't told by age alone. It's woven into the cloth itself. In 2025, a renewed analysis revealed an unusual herringbone twill pattern, distinctive, elegant, and rare. This pattern, experts say, does not match the common medieval textiles of Europe. Instead, it aligns with fabrics found in 1st century Syria and Judea. High-quality linen like this was not for common use. It was expensive, ceremonial, often used for burials of the rich or revered. Could this have been the very cloth purchased by Joseph of Arimathea? The man who, according to all 4 Gospels, laid the crucified Jesus in a new tomb and wrapped him in linen? And then there's the pollen. Microscopic traces embedded in the threads match plants native to ancient Jerusalem. Not France, not Italy, Jerusalem. The land where Jesus lived, the land where he died, and, if one believes, the land where he rose again. Look closer. The shroud does not merely depict a man. It reveals a story of agony, sacrifice, and something beyond comprehension. Etched into the linen is the front and back image of a man who has been crucified. His body is scourged. His face bears the swelling of brutal beatings. A crown of thorns once pierced his scalp. His hands and feet pierced through. His side opened. But there's something more haunting than the wounds. There is no ink, no paint, no pigment. Under ultraviolet light, there are no brush strokes, no bleeding dyes, no chemical residue, nothing that would indicate an artist at work. And yet, the image is there. Experts have concluded, this is not a painting. It's a negative image, like a photograph, burned into the outermost fibers of the cloth. Not through heat, not through pressure. As if the image appeared in a flash. No one has explained how it got there. No one has been able to replicate it. It stands, unexplained, unmatched, untouched by human hands. If not by brush, then how? Physicist Paolo Di Lazzaro and his team pursued that question for over a decade. Their conclusion, published again in 2025, stunned the scientific community. Only a short, intense burst of ultraviolet radiation delivered in less than a billionth of a second could replicate something even close to the shroud's image. Their estimates? 34 billion watts of light. To put it plainly, that's the energy of a nuclear reactor compressed into a blink. No natural phenomenon known to science can produce such a precise, localized effect. No machine on Earth can do it without incinerating the cloth. And yet, there it is. The shroud bears an image left behind by a moment of unimaginable power. Light, energy, radiance. The Gospels describe the resurrection with eerie similarity. Matthew writes, "His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow." Was this image born in the moment when death was undone? When the tomb was split by light? In 2025, even laser simulations using high-frequency pulses still cannot reproduce the effect without damaging the linen. We are staring into the remnants of something that should not be possible. And yet, it is. In the age of technology, we can fake almost anything. But not this. For over 40 years, scientists, artists, and engineers have tried to recreate the Shroud of Turin. They've used paints, acids, sunlight, heat, vapor, digital imaging, and all have failed. Because the image is more than just a surface mark. It contains depth. The shading on the cloth translates into spatial data, like a topographical map, a three-dimensional record of the body it once covered. In the 1970s, NASA engineers used image processing techniques designed for space photography to analyze the shroud. What they discovered shocked them. The image contains information that only a true 3D source could provide. Not a flat drawing, not a painting, a living body. In 2025, AI technology confirmed it again. With enhanced imaging, researchers ran simulations, reverse engineering every pixel of the cloth. And the result? No known process, ancient or modern, can recreate the image, not without destroying the fabric. It is an image that should not exist. And yet, it exists. But the shroud is not only a visual mystery, it is a forensic one. The stains on the linen have been rigorously tested, repeatedly, over decades. The verdict is consistent. It's blood. Real, human blood. Type AB-, common among Jewish populations, but rare in Europe. The blood contains bilirubin, indicating trauma, suffering, torture. And the wounds? They match. From head to toe, the man on the shroud bears over 100 scourge marks, consistent with Roman flagellation, each one spaced and patterned according to historical weapons. The brutal flagrum with its lead-tipped ends. On his head, bloodstains from sharp punctures. A crown, not of flowers, but of thorns. On his wrists, not his palms, are piercings. Medieval art often depicted nails through the palms, but modern medical knowledge confirms what Roman crucifixion demanded: nails through the wrists to support the body's weight. The feet show a single piercing, likely from one large nail driven through both limbs. The side? A post-mortem wound, consistent with a Roman spear, the same described in the Gospel of John. These are not the fanciful imaginings of a medieval artist. These are forensic facts. The cloth tells a story of suffering and, perhaps, redemption. Science, once skeptical of the shroud, now kneels before its complexity. In 2025, a joint Swiss-Italian team of geneticists undertook one of the most advanced analyses ever attempted on the ancient linen. Their focus? DNA. Not just from blood, but from the minute particles trapped in the microscopic fibers of the cloth. And what they found was astonishing. Mitochondrial DNA, passed through maternal lines, revealed markers common in ancient populations of the Middle East, specifically those from the region of 1st century Palestine. But there was more. Embedded within the weave were traces of ancient pollen and mineral dust, fragments of long-dried ecosystems. Their composition? Identical to those found in and around Jerusalem. Even the bacterial microbiome, those invisible microbial fingerprints that cling to all we touch, matched patterns consistent with exposure to arid, Middle Eastern climates. Then came the anomaly. A strange protein structure emerged under mass spectrometry, one that indicated intense, rapid heat exposure, without the telltale signs of combustion. It was as if the cloth had experienced light, not flame. Once again, we are left with a signature of something beyond natural processes. The shroud's survival alone is a mystery worth telling. In the year 1532, fire tore through the Sainte-Chapelle in Chambéry, France. The shroud, then stored in a silver reliquary, was caught in the blaze. Molten metal from the reliquary dripped onto the folded cloth, scorching it and leaving unmistakable triangular burn marks. It should have destroyed everything, but it didn't. When the cloth was unfolded, the image, the face, the body, the wounds, remained untouched. In 2025, thermal imaging confirmed what many had long suspected. The image was unaffected by the heat. It didn't shift. It didn't fade. It didn't burn. Why? Because the image wasn't made by heat. Not a chemical burn, not a scorch mark, not even a shadow. It is as if the image is immune to fire, yet imprinted by light. A paradox. And yet, the shroud lives within paradox. Once ridiculed, now reconsidered. In decades past, the Shroud of Turin was labeled a medieval hoax, dismissed in documentaries, ignored by mainstream voices. But the tide has turned. In 2025, the world saw something unexpected, a cultural shift. Prominent media figures who once rolled their eyes now lean in with curiosity. Joe Rogan, Eddie Bravo, influential voices with wide audiences. On air, they speak with wonder, with questions, not of certainty, but of intrigue. Bravo, once a vocal skeptic, now admits, if this is real, the world has to pay attention. Their discussion sparked viral clips and public discourse. Then came the Netflix documentary, Encoded in Light. Released in early 2025, it soared to the top of trending lists worldwide. Millions watched. Millions questioned. The shroud was no longer relic and rumor. It was global conversation. The shroud may appear to be a record of death, but perhaps it is a portrait of life reborn. The Gospel of John calls Jesus the light of men. In Matthew's account of the Transfiguration, his face shines like the sun, his garments as white as light. What if this cloth, this ancient linen, recorded that burst of divine brilliance? Not a shadow of suffering, but a radiant imprint of resurrection. A moment when the laws of nature were rewritten, when light, uncreated and eternal, surged from lifeless flesh, not to burn, but to leave a trace, a message, a fingerprint of glory. This is not a relic of mourning. It may be a silent echo of the moment when death was broken. At its heart, the Shroud of Turin is more than cloth. It is a witness, a silent observer to the greatest event in human history, the resurrection of Christ. If real, then this is not merely a scientific artifact. It is a message, woven not just with linen, but with love, with light. The image it bears is not just meant for our eyes, but for our hearts. It whispers to each soul, I was there, I saw, and I remain, that you might believe. For in that face, bruised, bloodied, crowned in thorns, we see both suffering and triumph. And the invitation stands, not just to observe, but to believe. In the year 2025, where satellites map the heavens and machines read the genome of life, an ancient cloth still speaks. And the more we examine it, the more it evades definition. We have lasers and algorithms. We have peer-reviewed journals and powerful microscopes. And still, we cannot explain it. Perhaps we were never meant to fully explain it. Perhaps the Shroud of Turin stands as a reminder that some truths are not discovered, they are revealed. If this linen is real, then the resurrection is real. And if the resurrection is real, then everything changes forever.